Okay, so the final render is done. So let's import it in After Effects because that's where I'm gonna do some compositing. So inside our vellum grain chip image folder under images is our render. So we can just select the first frame, frame 80, and it's gonna say open EXR sequence. So we'll say import, and it will give us a sequence here. Now before we drag this to our timeline here or our composition, we have to change the frame rate because it defaults to 30 frames per second. And I made this to be 25 frames per second. So we go to the interpret footage and then we go to main. Oops. And then in here we say assume this frame rate is 25 frames per second. Okay. So now it's 25 frames per second, as you can see here. So we'll drag it into a new composition. And here's our final shot. Let me fit this. Let's load it in here. Okay, cool. Looking all pretty. Okay, great. So we have our render in After Effects. And what I'd like to do now first is to add a sky background to this. Now, of course, as you may know, in After Effects we can do a camera tracker, 3D camera track. But there's also a way to export our camera settings from Houdini to After Effects. If you look at a website called orbold.com, in which you can find different kinds of digital assets for Houdini that other people made. So somebody made a asset in which you can export your Houdini camera to After Effects. So let's look for this one. So we'll say Houdini to After Effects. And here it is. So Houdini to AE. Let's click it. So this asset was made by Mohammed Osama, and he made it free to download. So you can just go ahead and download this and install it, and then we can export our Houdini camera. Now this was made for Houdini 16 and it hasn't been updated since, but someone on the forums came up with a solution to make this work in Houdini 18. We just have to remove some code lines from the plugin. So let's go and do that. So back in Houdini, we just say tab, and then we say Houdini to AE. And this will just pop up here like any other node. And we can select it and drop it down here. Okay, now when we click the Houdini to AE button here, you will receive a pop-up like this one. And in here you can adjust the settings for the camera export. But this will not work when you do this for the first time. You will get an error message and it won't work. So somebody came up with a solution, and there's a couple of tutorials on this for this on YouTube. So I'm not gonna go into the details. But if you right click on this node and go to type properties, you will get this window. And if you then go to scripts and click the Houdini to AE button here, the script, there's a couple of lines of code that we need to disable. And those lines are on 470 through 473. And you can see in which line you are by clicking on the text here. And it says, we're now at line 490. And this will be line 1. So we're looking for 470 through 473. And so mine's already fixed, but these you basically need to disable these 4 lines by putting a hashtag in front of it. So yours will probably look like this, like so. And then on these 4 lines we just put a hashtag in front and space. And we'll do that to all of these here. And I will just say accept, unlock and save. So you can now even just delete this and call out a new one, Houdini to AE. like so. And if we then press the button here, our pop-up will come through. And in here we just need to do one thing basically, and that is select our camera. So we select the camera we would like to use, so camera 1, and then we click on select camera in here. Now we aren't going to use any locators. When you want to use locators, you can, for instance, put a null on the ship that will follow the ship, and then you will get that position info in After Effects. But we're not going to do, we're just going to change or add a background to our scene. So we want to say uniform scale 1 is fine. We'll do frame 80 to frame 270. And then we just have to choose a location to save our script file, our JSX file. So in our vellum grain ship image, I made a folder called camera export. So we'll go in there and then we'll say Houdini to AE. Save. And then we can click export. Let's say export successfully. Okay, so that's all to this. And now we can import the script in After Effects. Okay, so in After Effects we go to File, we go to Scripts, and then we're gonna say Run Script File. Then we go to the correct folder in which we saved the script, and we'll select it and open it. And then it's gonna give us a new composition. So this is our vellum grain ship image.hiplc. And inside here we have a camera. And as you can see, it has a lot of keyframes. So this is our camera from Houdini. It's in the correct frames per second. So we can just copy this and put it in our scene here. And now we have our Houdini camera in After Effects. So when I would make a solid, and I will put it in 3D space. And one thing we have to take notice is Houdini's 3D space has a center of 0, 0, 0. And in After Effects, the center is at a different location because it picks the center of your frame. So it's gonna have different values. So we just have to put this to 0, 0, and then it will be in the right spot. So if we play this, we have it tracked to our scene. Okay, cool. So now we can do some compositing.